My name is Natalie, and at 28 years old I thought I understood my family dynamics perfectly. That changed the moment my mother delivered the crushing blow over our usual Sunday brunch. Christmas is only for parents now, sweetheart. You and your brother Marcus would not be welcome this year. The calm way she said it, like discussing weekend plans, made my blood freeze. But what happened next would expose a web of lies that had been suffocating our family for decades, and my response would change everything forever. Before I dive into this wild family drama that literally rewrote my entire understanding of blood loyalty, I have to ask, where are you watching from today? This story gets absolutely insane, so if you are ready for some serious family justice being served, smash that like button and subscribe, because you will not believe how this unfolds. Trust me, the revenge I got was sweeter than any Christmas dessert they could have served. The silence that followed my mother's announcement stretched across the restaurant like a thick fog. My father, Richard, kept cutting his eggs Benedict with surgical precision, never once looking up. My younger brother Marcus shifted uncomfortably in his chair, his usual confident demeanor cracking around the edges. I do not understand, I finally managed, setting down my coffee cup with deliberate care. What do you mean, only for parents? Mom's smile remained perfectly painted, the same one she wore during her real estate showings. Well, darling, Christmas has always been about family traditions, and now that your father and I are getting older, we want to focus on what really matters. Spending time with people who truly appreciate family values. The words hit like individual slaps. People who truly appreciate family values. What is that supposed to mean? Come on, Nat, Marcus finally spoke up, his voice carrying that condescending tone I remembered from childhood. You have to admit you have not exactly been the model daughter lately. My mind raced through recent months. I had been working 60-hour weeks as a pediatric nurse, barely managing to visit twice a month instead of weekly. I had missed exactly one family dinner because of a hospital emergency. I had forgotten to call Mom on her birthday until the next day. Model daughter, the phrase tasted bitter. I work double shifts saving children's lives, Marcus. What exactly have you contributed to this family lately? That question seemed to hit a nerve. Marcus owned a struggling marketing startup that Mom and Dad had funded twice when it nearly collapsed. He lived in their basement, drove their spare car, and had not paid for a single family dinner in 3 years. At least I understand loyalty, he shot back. At least I know what sacrifice means. Something cold and sharp twisted in my chest. Sacrifice? You mean like sacrificing my own apartment down payment to help pay for your business loans 2 years ago? That kind of sacrifice. Mom's composure finally cracked slightly. Natalie, that is ancient history. We are talking about moving forward as a family unit. Moving forward without me, apparently. Dad cleared his throat, speaking for the first time since we sat down. Your mother and I have discussed this extensively. We believe that Christmas should reflect our core values. Marcus understands the importance of family legacy. He is committed to carrying forward our traditions. The word legacy sent alarm bells ringing in my head. Our family had accumulated significant wealth over the years through Dad's construction business and Mom's real estate investments. They owned 3 properties and had always spoken about leaving everything to their children equally. What legacy are you talking about exactly? The Riverside property, for starters, Mom said, mentioning their most valuable asset, a lakefront cabin worth nearly $500,000. Marcus has shown genuine interest in maintaining it properly. My stomach dropped. The Riverside cabin had been our family sanctuary since childhood. Every summer, every major holiday, countless memories were carved into those wooden walls. More importantly, Dad had promised it would belong to both Marcus and me someday. I thought that property was meant for both of us. Plans change, sweetheart, Mom said with false sweetness. People grow apart. Priorities shift. I excused myself to the bathroom, my legs feeling unsteady. Standing in front of the mirror, I tried to process what was happening. This was not just about Christmas dinner. This was about being systematically cut out of my family's future. When I returned to the table, I caught the tail end of a whispered conversation between my parents and Marcus. The words I heard made my blood turn to ice. Once the paperwork is finalized. And she will never have to know about the real reason. They stopped talking the moment they saw me approaching. "What paperwork?" I asked directly. "Nothing that concerns you anymore," Dad replied curtly. But something in Marcus's expression told a different story. He looked guilty, almost sick. For just a moment his mask slipped, and I saw something that looked like shame. The rest of brunch passed in strained small talk about weather and local news. But my mind was racing, connecting dots that I had previously ignored. Late-night phone calls that stopped when I entered rooms. Documents quickly shuffled away when I visited. Conversations that felt oddly scripted, as if everyone was following a predetermined playbook. As we prepared to leave, Mom hugged me with the same mechanical warmth she reserved for difficult clients. "I hope you understand, darling. This is really for the best." "For whose best?" I asked. "Everyone's," she replied, but her eyes would not meet mine. Walking to my car, I felt something fundamental shift inside me. The family I had spent 28 years loving, supporting, and prioritizing had just calmly informed me that I was no longer welcome at the most important gathering of our year. But more than that, they were hiding something significant, something that involved paperwork and real reasons they could not share. That night, I sat in my small apartment, the one I had kept modest to help support Marcus's failing business ventures, and made a decision that would change everything. If my family wanted to play games with secrets and exclusion, I was going to find out exactly what they were hiding. I had been a pediatric nurse for 6 years. That meant I was trained to pay attention to details, to notice when something was seriously wrong, and to take action when lives were at stake. My family clearly thought they could manipulate me with emotional blackmail and mysterious implications about my character. They had no idea what they had just unleashed. The next morning I woke up with the kind of clarity that only comes after a night of pure crystallizing rage. Gone was the confused hurt from yesterday's brunch. In its place sat something much more dangerous: calculated determination. My first stop was the county clerk's office. Public records in our state are exactly that: public. If my family was moving forward with paperwork involving property transfers or estate planning, there would be traces. The clerk, a tired-looking woman named Janet, helped me navigate the system with surprising efficiency. "Property transfers usually show up within 2 weeks of filing," she explained, pulling up the search interface. "What is the address you are looking for?" I provided the Riverside cabin address along with my parents' primary residence. What appeared on the screen made my hands shake with fury. Filed just 5 days ago, a quitclaim deed transferring full ownership of the Riverside property from Richard and Margaret Thompson to Marcus Thompson. No mention of me anywhere in the documentation. But that was not the worst part. The worst part was the date on the transfer document. It was backdated to appear as if the decision had been made 6 months ago, long before our conversation yesterday. "Is there anything else filed recently under these names?" I asked, my voice remarkably steady. Janet's fingers flew across the keyboard. "Let me check. Yes, here is something interesting. A will amendment filed last week. My parents had changed their will. The woman who had raised me, who had sung me lullabies and bandaged my scraped knees, had systematically removed me from her estate planning while pretending nothing had changed. Can I get copies of these documents?" "Absolutely. That will be $12 for the set. $12 to discover that my family had been planning my financial execution for months while asking me to contribute to Marcus's business expenses. $12 to learn that Christmas dinner was not about family values. It was about making sure I could not contest decisions that had already been made. I sat in my car outside the clerk's office, reading through the legal documents with growing disbelief. The will amendment was particularly brutal in its precision. Not only had they removed me as a beneficiary, but they had included specific language about my demonstrated lack of commitment to family responsibilities as justification for the change. My phone buzzed with a text from Marcus. "Hey, talk to Mom and Dad. Maybe we were too harsh yesterday. Want to grab dinner this week and talk?" The audacity was breathtaking. They had filed legal documents to steal my inheritance, then Marcus wanted to grab dinner to smooth things over. Did they really think I was that naive? Instead of responding to Marcus, I called my friend Jessica, who worked as a paralegal at one of the city's most aggressive family law firms. We had been friends since college, and she had always been fascinated by my family's passive-aggressive dynamics. Jess, I need advice about something potentially very messy. Legal messy or family messy, both, definitely both. An hour later, I was sitting in Jessica's office, spreading the county clerk documents across her desk, like evidence at a crime scene. She read through everything twice, her expression growing more incredulous with each page. Natalie, this is not just shady. This might actually be illegal, she said finally. These backdated documents combined with the way they have been hiding this from you while still asking for financial support, my boss would have a field day with this. What do you mean? Think about it. They filed a quitclaim deed that removes your interest in property that was previously held in joint tenancy. But they did it secretly, while still allowing you to believe you had a future claim to the property. In the meantime, they have been accepting financial contributions from you under false pretenses. Jessica pulled out a legal pad and started making notes. How much money have you given them over the past year? I did the mental math and the number was sickening. Between helping with Marcus's business loans, contributing to family vacations, I had been too busy to attend, and covering various emergency expenses that had somehow become my responsibility, I had handed over nearly $15,000. 15 grand, I said, feeling sick. To people who were actively planning to cut you out of their estate while hiding that fact from you. Natalie, this might qualify as fraud. But I was not interested in lengthy legal battles that would drain my savings and probably destroy what remained of our family relationships. I wanted something much more satisfying than a court victory that would take years to achieve. I want to beat them at their own game, I told Jessica. They think they are so clever with their secret plans and legal maneuvers. I want to show them what happens when you underestimate someone who has been saving lives under pressure for 6 years. Jessica's smile turned predatory. Now you are speaking my language. What do you have in mind? Over the next 2 hours, we developed a strategy that would have made Machiavelli proud. The key was using their own tactics against them: secrecy, false pretenses, and careful timing. First, I would play along with Marcus's dinner invitation. I would act confused and hurt, maybe even apologetic for my lack of family commitment. I would let them think their manipulation was working. Second, I would use that dinner to gather more information. People who think they have won tend to get careless with their words. I needed to understand the full scope of their planning. Third, and most importantly, I would begin implementing my own secret plan. If they wanted to play with legal documents and property transfers, I was about to show them how a truly motivated person could turn their weapons against them. The beauty of their strategy was also its fatal weakness. They had been so focused on cutting me out financially that they had forgotten about everything else I brought to the family dynamic: my connections, my reputation in the community, my detailed knowledge of their personal and professional lives. They had made the classic mistake of underestimating their opponent. I texted Marcus back. Dinner sounds great. I have been thinking about what Mom and Dad said, and you are probably right. Maybe I need to reassess my priorities. His response came within minutes. Awesome. How about Thursday at Romano's? I think this could be a really good reset for all of us. A reset indeed, just not the kind Marcus was expecting. Thursday dinner at Romano's felt like a performance where only I knew the real script. Marcus had chosen our family's favorite restaurant, probably thinking familiar surroundings would make his manipulation more effective. He had no idea I was recording every word on my phone, which sat innocently beside my water glass. I am really glad you wanted to talk, I said, settling into the booth across from him. I have been thinking a lot about what happened on Sunday. Marcus relaxed visibly, probably interpreting my calm tone as submission. Yeah, I felt bad about how harsh we were. Mom and Dad have been under a lot of stress lately with some business stuff. Business stuff. Oh, Dad's construction company has been struggling with some regulatory issues, and Mom's real estate market has been weird this year. They are just being extra careful about financial planning right now. Interesting. No mention of the property, transfers, or will changes. Marcus was sticking to a cover story that painted our parents as stressed business owners making difficult but temporary decisions. That makes sense, I said, channeling every acting skill I had learned in high school drama club. I guess I have been so focused on my own career that I have not been paying attention to their struggles. Maybe I could help somehow. The look that crossed Marcus's face was pure greed. Actually, that is really generous of you to offer. Dad mentioned that the construction company could use about $20,000 to cover some unexpected permit fees. $20,000. They were planning to ask me for $20,000 while secretly cutting me out of the family estate. The sheer audacity was almost admirable. 20,000 is a lot, I said carefully. But family is family, right? I would need to see some paperwork though, just for my own records. Marcus shifted uncomfortably. Well, Dad handles all the business documentation. I am sure he could show you something if you really need it. Of course, I would want to make sure I understand the full financial picture before making such a big commitment. Speaking of financial pictures, how are things with your marketing business? Getting better, actually. Much better. I think this might be the year it really takes off. That is wonderful. Mom and Dad must be so relieved, especially after supporting you for so long. Something flickered behind Marcus's eyes. Guilt maybe, or recognition that I was not being as naive as he had hoped. Yeah, they have been incredible. Really understanding about the importance of family legacy and supporting each other through tough times. There was that word again, legacy. I decided to push a little harder. It is funny you mention legacy. I was talking to my friend Rebecca. You remember Rebecca from nursing school? Her family just went through this whole complicated estate planning process. Apparently, her parents made some major changes to their will without telling the kids, and it caused this massive fight when they found out. Marcus went very still. That sounds awful. Right, Rebecca said. The worst part was feeling like her parents had been lying to her for months while still expecting her to contribute financially to family expenses. She said it felt like they were stealing from her. That does sound complicated. She ended up hiring a lawyer. Apparently there are laws about this kind of thing. You cannot accept money from someone under false pretenses while secretly planning to cut them out of inheritance documents. Rebecca's lawyer called it fraudulent misrepresentation or something like that. Marcus's fork clattered against his plate. Lawyers make everything so complicated though. Family stuff should stay in the family. Oh, absolutely. I completely agree. Family stuff should definitely stay in the family. No secrets, no hidden agendas, just honest communication about important decisions. The message was not subtle, but it did not need to be. Marcus understood exactly what I was telling him. The question was whether he would take the warning seriously or assume he could continue manipulating me. Natalie, is there something specific you want to ask me? Perfect. He was giving me an opening to lay my cards on the table. I went to the county clerk's office on Monday, Marcus. The color drained from his face so quickly I thought he might faint. I know about the Riverside property transfer. I know about the will changes. I know that while you and Mom and Dad were pretending to make difficult but fair decisions about Christmas dinner, you had already secretly stolen my inheritance. Marcus opened his mouth, then closed it, then opened it again like a fish gasping for air. I know that you backdated documents to make it look like these decisions were made months ago. I know that Dad's construction company is not struggling with permit fees. Jessica's boss called his business partner this morning to check. I know that you have been planning to ask me for $20,000 while hiding the fact that you have already legally stolen hundreds of thousands from me. Natalie, you do not understand the whole situation. Then explain it to me. Right now. Explain to me how taking my inheritance while lying to my face serves any legitimate family purpose. Marcus looked around the restaurant desperately as if hoping our parents would materialize to handle this conversation for him. It was not my idea, he said finally. Mom and Dad came to me with the plan. They said you had been pulling away from the family, that you did not really value our traditions anymore. What traditions? Working 60-hour weeks to help pay for your failed business ventures. You have to understand they were worried about you. They thought maybe if you had less financial security, you would realize how important family connections really are. The twisted logic was breathtaking. They had decided to steal my inheritance to teach me about family values. So this was all for my own good. They really believed it would bring you closer to us in the long run. I leaned back in the booth, studying my brother's face. He genuinely seemed to believe the story he was telling. Our parents had convinced him that stealing from me was an act of love, that financial manipulation was a form of family therapy. Marcus, do you understand that what you just described is textbook emotional abuse? We are not abusive. We are a good family. Good families do not secretly redistribute inheritances based on imaginary character flaws. Good families do not lie to each other for months while planning major financial decisions. Good families do not ask for money under false pretenses. I pulled out my phone and stopped the recording app. I want you to go home and tell Mom and Dad exactly what happened here tonight. Tell them that I know everything, and that I am giving them one opportunity to make this right. What do you mean, make it right? Full restoration of my inheritance, public apology for the deception, and complete transparency about any other financial decisions that affect me. Marcus looked panicked. And if they do not agree, I smiled, and apparently something in my expression made him lean back involuntarily. Then they are going to learn what happens when you try to steal from someone who has spent 6 years learning how to stay calm under extreme pressure. They are going to discover what I am capable of when someone threatens my financial security and tries to destroy my family relationships based on lies. Natalie, please do not do anything crazy. Oh, Marcus. I am not going to do anything crazy. I am going to do something much worse than that. I am going to do something smart. I left him sitting at Romano's, probably wondering whether he should call our parents immediately or pretend this conversation had never happened. Either way, he would eventually tell them what I had discovered. And when he did, they would have to decide whether they wanted to face me as a family member, seeking reconciliation, or as an enemy who had nothing left to lose. Given their recent track record with decision-making, I was not optimistic about their choice, but I was ready for either possibility. Marcus called me at 6 in the morning on Friday, his voice shaking with panic. Natalie, we need to talk. All of us. Today. Mom and Dad want to meet at their house at 10. Do they now? I said, sipping my coffee and enjoying the desperation in his voice. And what exactly do they want to discuss? You know what, the thing we talked about at dinner. They want to clarify some misunderstandings. Clarify misunderstandings. Even in crisis mode, my family could not bring themselves to use honest language. They wanted to manage the damage I could cause, not actually address what they had done. Tell them I will be there at 10. And Marcus, make sure they understand that this is their one chance to handle this like adults. I arrived at my childhood home precisely on time, carrying a leather portfolio that contained copies of all the documents Jessica and I had gathered. Mom and Dad were waiting in the living room, sitting stiffly on the couch like defendants awaiting sentencing. Natalie, sweetheart, please sit down, Mom said, gesturing to the chair across from them. We need to discuss this situation rationally. What situation would that be? Dad cleared his throat. Marcus told us about your conversation last night. We think there may have been some miscommunication about our recent legal and financial planning. Miscommunication, I repeated slowly. Is that what we are calling fraud now? Now wait just a minute, Dad's voice rose. We have every right to manage our estate as we see fit. These are our assets built through our hard work over decades. You absolutely have that right, I agreed. What you do not have is the right to secretly steal my inheritance while lying to my face and asking for financial contributions under false pretenses. I opened my portfolio and spread documents across their coffee table like a dealer laying out cards. Let me show you exactly what I know, and then you can decide how you want to handle this. Mom's face went white as she recognized the county clerk documents. Where did you get these public records, Mom? Amazing what you can discover when you actually look for the truth instead of trusting people who claim to love you. I pointed to the first document. Quitclaim deed filed 5 days before our Sunday brunch conversation, transferring the Riverside property entirely to Marcus. Backdated to make it appear the decision was made 6 months ago. Next document, will amendment removing me as beneficiary, and specifically citing my lack of commitment to family responsibilities as justification. Filed 1 week before you told me I was not welcome at Christmas dinner. Final document, business registration showing that Dad's construction company filed for a major expansion permit last month, directly contradicting Marcus's story about financial struggles and permit fee problems. The silence in the room was deafening. So here is what actually happened, I continued, my voice calm and professional. You decided months ago that you wanted Marcus to inherit everything. Instead of having an honest conversation with me about your reasoning, you chose to lie, manipulate, and steal. You created false narratives about my character and false emergencies about your finances. You planned to take $20,000 more from me while hiding the fact that you had already stolen hundreds of thousands. We did not steal anything, Dad, protested weakly. Then explain to me how accepting money from someone under false pretenses while secretly planning to cut them out of inheritance documents is not theft. Mom finally found her voice. We were trying to protect the family legacy. Marcus has shown real commitment to maintaining our values and traditions. What values? Lying to family members, stealing from people who trust you, teaching your son that manipulation is an acceptable way to get what you want. You have been pulling away from us for years, Mom shot back. Working all those hours, missing family dinners, acting like your career is more important than your relatives. I work those hours saving children's lives, Mom. I miss family dinners because sick kids do not care about your pot roast schedule. And apparently, while I was busy being a productive member of society, you were busy plotting to financially destroy me. Marcus, who had been silent throughout this exchange, finally spoke up. Maybe we can find some kind of compromise here. What kind of compromise did you have in mind, Marcus? You steal half my inheritance instead of all of it. That is not what I meant. Then what did you mean? Because from where I sit, you participated in a conspiracy to defraud me while pretending to be my loving brother. You helped our parents create legal documents designed to steal from me. You lied to my face while asking me to pay for your business expenses. I stood up and walked to the window, looking out at the garden where I had played as a child. When I turned back to face them, my expression was ice cold. Here is what is going to happen. You have exactly 24 hours to reverse every document you filed without my knowledge. The property transfer gets canceled. The will gets restored to its original state. Every penny I contributed to this family over the past year gets returned to my bank account. And if we refuse, Dad asked. Then I file criminal fraud charges on Monday morning. Jessica's boss is very excited about this case. Apparently, family financial fraud is becoming quite the specialty area for their firm. They are particularly interested in the backdated documents which might qualify as forgery under state law. Mom gasped. You would really take your own family to court? You really stole from your own daughter, I replied. So yes, I would absolutely take you to court. But that would only be the beginning. I pulled out my phone and showed them a draft social media post I had prepared. I have also written a detailed account of this entire situation, complete with copies of all the legal documents. It is currently scheduled to post automatically on every social platform I use, unless I cancel it by Sunday night. You would not, Mom whispered. Try me. Your real estate business depends entirely on your reputation in this community, Mom. Dad's construction company relies on trust and word-of-mouth referrals. How do you think your clients will react when they discover that you steal from your own children? When they realize that if you will defraud your own daughter, you will definitely defraud them, the threat hit its mark. Both of my parents made their living in industries where reputation was everything. A fraud scandal would destroy their professional lives within weeks. This is extortion, Dad said. No, this is consequences. Extortion would be if I demanded something I was not entitled to. I am simply demanding what you stole from me plus accountability for your actions. I gathered my documents and headed toward the door. You have until 10 tomorrow morning to call Jessica's office and arrange the document reversals. If I do not hear from them by then, I proceed with Plan B. What is Plan B? Marcus asked. You really do not want to find out. Saturday morning at 9:45, Jessica called me with barely contained excitement. Your father just left my office, she said. He brought original copies of every document you mentioned, plus a few more that you had not discovered yet. Apparently, they had also filed paperwork to transfer some investment accounts and change beneficiaries on life insurance policies. The scope of their planning was even more extensive than I had realized. They had systematically removed me from every aspect of their financial legacy while maintaining the pretense of loving family relationships. Did he seem cooperative? Cooperative is not the word I would use. Terrified might be more accurate. He kept asking whether criminal charges were still on the table and whether there was any way to guarantee that this situation would not become public knowledge. What did you tell him? I told him that would depend entirely on how smoothly the restoration process goes and how quickly your family demonstrates genuine accountability for their actions. By noon, I had confirmation that every fraudulent document had been reversed. The Riverside property was back in joint ownership between my parents with clear inheritance rights for both Marcus and me. The will had been restored to its original language. Even the investment accounts and insurance policies had been corrected, but the most satisfying part was the phone call I received from my mother at 2 o'clock that afternoon. Natalie, we need to talk about Christmas dinner. What about it? We would very much like you to join us. We realized that our previous conversation was inappropriate. Inappropriate. Still not willing to use the word fraudulent or abusive or criminal, but it was progress. I appreciate the invitation, Mom, but I am not sure I am comfortable celebrating holidays with people who recently tried to steal my inheritance. We were not trying to steal anything. We were trying to ensure that family assets went to family members who would appreciate them properly. Even in defeat, she could not bring herself to acknowledge the fundamental dishonesty of their approach. Mom, let me ask you something. If Marcus had discovered that you were secretly planning to cut him out of your will while asking him for money, how do you think he would have reacted? Long pause. He would have been upset. He would have been devastated. He would have felt betrayed and manipulated and probably would have questioned every family interaction for the past several months. Which is exactly how I feel right now. So what do you want from us, Natalie? We corrected the legal documents. We have apologized. What else can we do? You could start by acknowledging that what you did was wrong. Not inappropriate or misguided, but actually morally wrong. You could explain why you thought it was acceptable to lie to me for months. You could tell me what other family decisions you have made without including me. Another long pause. Your father and I have always tried to do what was best for this family. That is not an acknowledgement, Mom. That is another justification. I do not know what you want me to say. I want you to say that you understand why secretly stealing someone's inheritance while asking them for money is fundamentally dishonest. I want you to say that you realize how your actions damaged our relationship. I want you to say that you are committed to complete transparency going forward. Fine. I understand that our approach was dishonest. I realize that our actions damaged our relationship. We are committed to transparency going forward. The words were technically correct but delivered with all the sincerity of a hostage reading a prepared statement. Thank you, Mom. I will think about Christmas dinner and let you know. But even as I hung up the phone, I knew that something fundamental had shifted in our family dynamic. The trust that had taken 28 years to build had been shattered in a single conversation over eggs Benedict. Legal documents could be reversed, but emotional damage was not so easily corrected. That evening, Marcus sent me a long text message that was part apology and part self-justification. He claimed that he had genuinely believed our parents' reasoning about bringing me closer to the family through financial pressure. He insisted that he had never intended to hurt me and that he hoped we could eventually rebuild our relationship. The text was probably sincere, but it also revealed how completely Marcus had bought into our parents' manipulative worldview. He had participated in a scheme to defraud me because he believed it would somehow benefit me in the long run. The level of rationalization required to reach that conclusion was genuinely disturbing. Sunday afternoon brought an unexpected visitor. Dad appeared at my apartment door looking older and more defeated than I had ever seen him. "Can I come in?" I let him into my living room where he sat heavily on my couch and stared at his hands for several minutes. "I owe you a real apology," he said finally. "Not the legal kind, not the kind that protects us from consequences, but a real one." "Okay. What we did to you was wrong. Not just tactically stupid or poorly executed, but fundamentally wrong. We treated you like an enemy instead of our daughter. We lied to you, we stole from you, and we tried to manipulate you into thanking us for it." The words hit harder than I had expected. This was the acknowledgement I had been hoping for from Mom earlier. "Why, Dad, why did you think any of that was acceptable?" "Because we were scared," he admitted. "Scared that you were pulling away from us, scared that your career was becoming more important than family, scared that we were losing you anyway and might as well protect Marcus's future." So you decided to guarantee that you would lose me. We thought we could control the situation. We thought we were smarter than we actually are. Dad looked up at me with red-rimmed eyes. I know this does not fix anything, but I need you to understand that we love you. Our actions were horrible, but they came from love, not malice. Dad, love does not justify theft. Love does not justify months of lying and manipulation. If anything, love should have made those actions impossible. You are absolutely right. And I do not know how to make this better. You make it better by never doing anything like this again. You make it better by rebuilding trust through consistent, honest behavior over time. You make it better by accepting that there are consequences for breaking someone's trust this completely. Does that mean you are not coming to Christmas dinner? It means I am not ready to pretend everything is fine when it is not fine. It means I need time to figure out whether I can ever trust any of you again. Dad left my apartment looking like a man who had finally understood the real cost of his choices. Christmas morning arrived cold and bright, and for the first time in 28 years, I spent it entirely alone. I had declined my family's invitation and instead volunteered for a hospital shift covering for colleagues who wanted to be home with their own families. Working Christmas Day turned out to be exactly what I needed. Spending the morning helping sick children and supporting worried parents reminded me of what actually mattered in life. Real love looked like exhausted mothers sleeping in uncomfortable hospital chairs to stay close to their babies. Real family loyalty looked like fathers driving through snowstorms to be present for their children's medical procedures. Real family did not look like secret legal documents and backdated property transfers. Around noon, my phone buzzed with messages from various family members. Mom had sent a formal text wishing me happy holidays and expressing hope that we could work through our differences soon. Marcus had forwarded a group photo from Christmas dinner showing him and our parents around the dining room table with forced smiles that looked more like grimaces. The photo that should have made me feel excluded instead filled me with relief. I had spent years feeling guilty for missing family gatherings due to work obligations. Now I realized that those obligations had been protecting me from people who saw me as a financial resource rather than a beloved family member. But the most surprising message came from my cousin, Sarah, Dad's brother's daughter who lived 3 states away. "Hey Nat, I heard through the family grapevine that you had some kind of falling out with your parents. I wanted you to know that something similar happened with my mom and dad 5 years ago. If you ever want to talk to someone who understands family financial drama, I am here." I called Sarah that evening, and our conversation lasted 3 hours. It turned out that my uncle and aunt had pulled almost identical manipulation tactics with her, including secret will changes and false financial emergencies. The pattern was apparently a family tradition that extended beyond my immediate relatives. The hardest part, Sarah told me, is realizing that the people who raised you are capable of treating you like an adversary. But the good news is that once you see it clearly, you stop being vulnerable to their tactics. How do you handle family gatherings now? Very carefully and with clear boundaries. I attend major events, but I do not stay in their house. I do not discuss finances, and I do not provide emotional labor for their guilt trips. It took about 2 years, but we eventually found a way to have a relationship that works. Sarah's perspective was invaluable. She had walked this path before me and found a way to preserve family connections without sacrificing her own well-being or financial security. Over the following months, I began building what I came to think of as my chosen family. Jessica and her husband invited me for regular Sunday dinners. My nursing colleagues became closer friends as I stopped rushing away from social events to attend family obligations. I started dating again, something I had neglected while pouring energy into my original family's endless financial crises. The most unexpected development was my relationship with my elderly neighbor, Mrs. Rodriguez. She was a retired teacher who lived alone and had been struggling with some health issues. I began checking on her regularly, and she started inviting me for coffee and conversation. "You know," she told me one afternoon, "family is not just about blood relations. Family is about people who show up for each other consistently and honestly." Rodriguez had raised 4 children as a single mother after her husband died young. 2 of those children had moved across the country and rarely called. The other 2 visited frequently and helped with her daily needs. I love all my children equally, she said, but I invest my time and energy in the relationships that are reciprocal and healthy. The others get birthday cards and holiday greetings, but not my emotional availability. Her approach gave me a framework for thinking about my own family situation. I could maintain basic civility and holiday connections with my parents and Marcus without investing deeply in relationships that had proven to be fundamentally dishonest. 6 months after the Christmas dinner incident, Dad called to tell me that Mom had been diagnosed with early-stage breast cancer. The diagnosis was scary but treatable with an excellent prognosis if caught early. She wants to see you, Dad said. She is really scared and she misses you. I visited Mom in the hospital after her surgery, bringing flowers and staying for an hour of careful conversation. We talked about her treatment plan, her recovery timeline, and neutral topics like hospital food and nursing staff. We did not discuss Christmas dinner or property transfers or trust issues. I know things are complicated between us, Mom said as I prepared to leave, but I am grateful that you came. I am glad you are going to be okay, Mom. Maybe when I am feeling better we could try having lunch together, just the two of us. No agenda, no heavy conversations, just catching up. I would like that, I said, and meant it. Rebuilding trust would be a slow process, but it was possible. The key was proceeding with realistic expectations and clear boundaries, rather than pretending that legal document reversals had magically restored our previous relationship. A year later, I received an unexpected phone call from Marcus. His marketing business had finally become profitable, and he wanted to pay me back for all the financial support I had provided over the years. You do not have to do this, I told him. Yes, I do. I have been thinking a lot about what you said that night at Romano's. About fraud and false pretenses and emotional abuse. You were right about all of it, and I owe you much more than money. Marcus had apparently spent the year in therapy, working through his role in the family manipulation and learning to recognize unhealthy relationship patterns. The changes in his perspective were remarkable. I want to earn back your trust, he said, but I understand if that takes time. I understand if it never happens at all. Today, 2 years after that devastating Christmas exclusion, my relationship with my family is cautiously positive but fundamentally different. We have lunch occasionally, exchange holiday gifts, and maintain polite contact. But I no longer prioritize their approval or contribute to their financial schemes. Most importantly, I have learned to recognize the difference between family members who love you and family members who simply expect loyalty. Real love does not require secret legal maneuvers or elaborate emotional manipulation. Real love shows up honestly even when honesty is difficult. Have you ever discovered that family members were working against your interests while pretending to support you? What would you do if someone secretly tried to steal your inheritance while asking you for financial help? I would love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. Family karma. Stories always fascinate me because they show how justice eventually finds its way to people who think they are too clever to face consequences. If this story of family revenge and ultimate justice resonated with you, please hit that like button and subscribe for more real-life drama with satisfying endings. Share this with anyone who needs to hear that you do not have to accept manipulation just because it comes from relatives. Thank you for joining me on this journey through one of the most challenging but ultimately empowering experiences of my life. Remember that sometimes the family you choose treats you better than the family you were born into, and that is not just okay, it is a sign of healthy growth and strong boundaries.